Men are men, women are women. God created you the way he wanted you to be.
A Kentucky legislator's podcast comments describe transgender children and the parents who support them as mentally ill. And now they're getting the attention of Kentuckians. This is Wave News at 6. I'm Myra Ansari.
I'm John Bull. Republican Josh Calloway of Breckinridge County was a vocal leader of Kentucky's new trans laws. Wave News reporter David Mattingly has more on Calloway's comments and the reaction.
John, his comments came in a podcast, and they're getting statewide attention right now. And Josh Calloway indicates the sweeping anti-trans law that passed in Kentucky is just the beginning.
There is an attack against the innocence of children. There's an attack against the minds of children.
Republican Representative Josh Calloway was a leading supporter of anti-trans legislation that resulted in restricting the use of pronouns and restrooms in schools and banning transgender treatments in Kentucky for anyone under 18. His new podcast goes after national retailer Target for offering trans-supporting swimwear.
This is not just for people in select stores in society. They are going after our children, putting it at the front door.
But criticism erupted almost immediately when the podcast was promoted Wednesday, saying the LGBTQI plus community is a disease. Fairness Campaign Executive Director Chris Hartman lobbied unsuccessfully to stop Calloway in the legislature.
What didn't surprise me that not just was it put there, but that he doubled down on it.
Calloway responded late Tuesday saying gender dysphoria is a psychiatric disease and gender ideology is spreading on social media as a social contagion and targeting confused children.
The things that Josh Calloway says, the anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that he espouses is 100% one of the leading contributing factors to those disproportionately high suicide rates.
The hour and 13-minute long podcast is full of dire warnings describing a national agenda that sows gender confusion with goals of controlling opinions and sexualizing children. Calloway warns of doctors pushing parents to transition their children, blaming mental illness for children wanting to transition, and the same for their parents.
If you are a parent and you want to transition your child to the opposite sex, then you have a parent that has a mental health issue.
Right. Calloway also discussed possible future legislative interests targeting objectionable books in schools and libraries. He was not available today for comment. David Mattingly, Wave News.
All right, you're watching the station, Kentucky's Conservative Outpost. And, of course, if you watched that story, we're talking about a Kentucky State Rep, Josh Calloway, who we wanted to bring on the program tonight and discuss the recent controversies and he's found himself in. And so, Josh, are you on the line here? So there we go.
Yes,
very
sir.
Good. Okay, great. So Josh, I don't guess you like Pride Month very much, do you? You're not you're not into the whole LGBT Pride Month thing.
Well,
no, I'm just
God hates pride. I just tend to go to his side with that.
There we go. Well said. Well said. Well, listen, we appreciate what you've done on with that House bill and protecting our children and standing up for things sensible. But I want to give you a chance just to respond to it's just the recent controversies. I know you've done some posts online explaining your words there, and I think you used the word the LGBT movement. I think is a disease. Am I saying that right, or is it just the whole lifestyle is a disease? And use the word disease, what I think is the buzzword that people are just pushing back on. It's like, what do you mean disease? But it's a mental disorder, which could be especially transgenderism and has been classified as a mental disorder historically. And so a disease, mental disorder, is it semantics or how do you respond to that?
Well, the whole reasoning behind that, if people actually went and watched what I said, I was using and talking about the fact that and used an article that was stating that the trans mind is mutating. And so I was making that claim, as well as looking at what's happening with statistics on how that this social contagion is spreading. It's spreading across our country. Had a young gentleman that's helped me put these videos together, and he had some internet issue and wanted to help me out. So he uploaded for me and actually put that, based on what I said, he came to the conclusion, and he was the one that put the words in there that the LGBTQAI plus community is a disease. So he put that in there based on what I had said in the video of how that it was spreading and mutating, and he came to that conclusion.
Sure.
But the fact is it is spreading, it is mutating, and it's beyond the mental health disorder. And I think that's the end result of the fact that it's wrong, and the fact that God says that it's sin, and it causes people, you were seeing depression and all those things in our youth. And as it's moving across our society, I heard a number today that astounded me. I've got to do some research into the number, but nearly 40% of teenagers in the United States of America are saying that they have some type of leaning into LGBTQAI plus.
That's right.
That's unreal. And you go back 10 years, and we're talking about 2 or 3% of the entire population. So I didn't specifically say that the LGBT community in regard to people are a disease, but I will say that it's spreading like a disease everywhere across this country. And that was the whole point. The neat thing was how many views that the Twitter post got, and then how not so many views that the actual video got. So people didn't actually go watch the video to see what I said. They just took that description and ran with it, and that's fine because it did promote a conversation. And they said all I did was double down on it. What I doubled down on was the fact that it's wrong, and that they are pushing this on our kids, and that I'm going to do everything within my power as long as God gives me the strength to fight against it and to push back.
Yeah, well said. And I'm sure you've heard Elon Musk say this in the past, because he's come out against a lot of these radical left-wing ideas, and otherwise known as wokeism, right? So he'll say, well, woke, the woke mind virus is expanding. The woke mind virus, which is, it's the same idea. In other words, people are suggestible, right? And people can adopt ideas and on many different levels: political ideas, cultural ideas, personal sexuality is very suggestible, and you can, and these ideas can spread, and so there's a reason suddenly that there's a lot of people that want to dress up like women, or a lot of this wasn't happening 10 years ago. Well, why is that? Well, because suddenly our culture is, it's in the social media ecosystem now. It's being promoted by this person, that company, this group, this media group, and so it's a suggestible thing. And so there's a moment we're living through where these things happen, and so actually I want to pause right here. I'm going to play a video from a very interesting feminist liberal author who studied these sort of issues throughout her career, and she came to a conclusion that's very similar to ours. And so I want to play that here, and I got to get it teed up, but it's Camille Paglia, and so we'll do that right now.
Of what's happening today.
I don't want to get you to say anything you don't believe, but I'm interested in it because I want to be for liberation. I'm not going to stop anyone dressing how they will, but there's something weird about lots of young women wanting to be young men and lots of young men wanting to be women. I don't feel as though it's a great step forward myself. Thoughts?
Well, I say in the introduction to my new book, my new collection, my particular transgender rebellion came at a time when there wasn't these ideas in the air, that the moment you are dissatisfied with the limitations of your present gender definition, that there is this enormous mechanism waiting to alter your body, to halt puberty, to slow your puberty down, people, all very well-meaning and very sympathetic, are there to provide surgical intervention and potential, permanent changes in your body with which there's no going back. Okay, for me, a sex change operation opens one door but closes many others. Right? So I personally believe that anyone who collaborates in an intrusion into a developing child's body and mind is guilty of child abuse, a crime against humanity. Okay, because that child is not prepared to make such a decision. Okay, I think that such decisions about sex reassignment surgery must wait when one attains a majority, which would be, it seems to me, a minimum of age 18. I'm very concerned with this because I think that it's become a fashion, okay, that the transgender definition has become a kind of convenient label for young people who may simply feel alienated, okay, culturally for many other reasons, okay. So that in the 1950s they might have become a beatnik, in the 1960s they might have become a hippie and taken mind-expanding drugs, okay. And so today you're encouraged to think that it's an alienation is because you are not totally defined, identifying with your particular inherited gender definition.
Now, the questioner there, her question.
I'm going to pause there because she has another segment where she talks about how this is really a sign of late-stage culture, and we'll play that in a moment. But there we go. I mean, she was basically saying this is a fashion moment in a lot of ways. This is a fashionable idea in our culture, and this is a serious scholar, a liberal, a feminist, a lesbian, somebody who's actually dabbled in the whole transgender experience herself, and she's honest about it enough to say this is a moment we're living through, and there's some things that are really wrong with it, and one thing you do not do is you do not alter surgically children. And Josh Calloway, you authored a bill that to protect children in the state, and I want to. Can you talk about that bill and what it does? Because I think certainly we needed that sort of help.
Yes, sir. So we had several bills that were filed in the 2023 session. I had authored House Bill 173. That actually did a lot of things in regard to parental rights and education into this sexual identity and sexual orientation, those types of things, to try to prohibit that from being taught in schools. We also had House Bill 470 that Representative Decker had filed that dealt with these gender transition surgeries. And then Senate Bill 150 was filed over in the Senate that morphed into all of these bills into one. And Senate Bill 150 is what we ultimately passed. And it basically dealt with this gender mutilation and these irreversible drugs that kids are being given to change their identity. And it also dealt with the school system as well and the teaching of these types of things in the school, whether it be, sex ed before 6th grade or teaching the gender identity, sexual orientation through any grade. So we blocked that from being able to be taught. And the reason being is just what you said and what she was saying. It has come about as a socially accepted thing, socially pushed thing now, and it's being pushed from all sides. And it's amazing what's revealed. You actually made the statement a little bit ago and made a statement, and it brought to my mind this fact. If you'll remember when all of this started and all of the, when it was just the L, G, and maybe the B, when they started having the conversations in public and they wanted to be accepted, which was not their goal. Their goal was to be promoted, but they wanted to be accepted. And they made the statement, we can't help it. We were born this way. This is not a choice. This is how that we were born. Well, now gender is fluid. That means everybody gets to whatever day of the week they decide to choose what they want to be, they choose what they want to be. And I'll tell you what they despise worse than being told that this is a disease they despise being told that this is a choice, because it is a choice.
Right.
Which is why I think that it is so wrong to push this upon our children and to put it in the minds of our children and to put it in their faces everywhere that they go. If it's a choice, and there are things that are God ordained, that have predictable outcomes, man, woman, child. Those are just predictable. It's just what's going to happen. When you place anything out in front of children as being the norm and giving them as a choice, especially in the society that we live in today and the social pressure and push to be accepted and inclusive, of course children are going to lean in that direction, and they're going to, why not? Why would we not want to be acceptive of everybody? Why would we not want to include everybody? And they just fall into that mindset. That's why I'm so against it, because it is a choice. It can be helped, and it's helped by making good choices.
That's right. Yeah, exactly right. They've taken empathy and they've weaponized it, and so because Americans are good people, right? And at our base, we have a good ethos. No, we're all born sinners, right? So we're all, but America as a whole culturally has been a pretty solid country, and it's because of our Judeo-Christian heritage, right? And so we want to help people. We want to give people the rights that they deserve. So, but that movement has basically weaponized the goodwill of Americans and empathy, and basically taken that and use it as a club to beat you over the head with if you have any sort of question about is this good for you, or is this good for our culture? And so, and I want to unpack the choice thing a bit too, because there are a lot of people that say, well, I don't have a choice. I was born this way. And so we need to unpack that on some level. I think that, first of all, transition surgery, that's a choice,
Right.
Choosing to dress up like a woman when you're a man, that's a choice. Now then you kind of get into is someone with the same sex attraction, is that a choice? And there's a lot of discussion on that. I fall on the line that with men it's a little more fixed, but it comes from some deep-seated issues that usually happen in childhood. As lack of a loving father is generally the reason there, or which you add abuse to that. Molestation, banned. They're on track with an unmet need that somehow homosexuality meets for them, and that's men. And it's hard. It's difficult because it becomes a fixed sort of thing in their head, but that can be turned around, and it's people can criticize you about what do you mean you're trying to make gays ungay, whatever. But I've known people that used to live that lifestyle and are no longer living that lifestyle, and yes, you can turn from that, and your attractions, can change. With women, much more suggestible, it seems. I mean, I'm sure you've met people in my life, or your life, and I know met people in my life that I've seen lots of women that have, suddenly it's fashionable to have a girlfriend, and so now they have a girlfriend one week. Well, the next week they got a boyfriend, and so it's I think women's sexuality is a little more fluid and suggestible. But so is it a choice there? I don't, who knows? But at the end of the day, there's a perfect will that God has for man, and we live in this fallen world, and so there's hope to live the life that He's called us to live, and also if we do, you flourish, and our society flourishes, and because that's I'm sorry, I'm on a soapbox here, but let me just say this: if there's a reason societies fail, right? There's a reason societies succeed, and I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to finish the clip that Camille Paglia said, because she talks about this moment in history, and she uses other cultures as a moment. And I'm going to play this real quick, and I'd love to get your comments on it. So we'll go back to this.
I'm very concerned about this. I think that a lot of it, I think that the collaboration of the bureaucratic machinery with it has to do with the assault on masculinity, okay? Okay, so you see, gender doesn't really exist. It's not really polarity. I mean, everything's all about expanding women's rights, but also terminating men, okay, and defining men out of existence. Masculinity is by definition toxic, okay? Masculinity doesn't exist. And you see, this is the proof of it. But now I began all my studies, My book, Sexual Personae, began as a dissertation at Yale graduate school on androgyny. I've always been fascinated, attracted to the subject of androgyny, and that's what the sexual personae is. I explored it in history. But the more I explored it, I realized that that historically, the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture. Okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel. Okay, and you can find it again and again and again through history in the Greek art. Okay, you can see it happening. All of a sudden, okay, there's a kind of there's the sculptures of handsome nude young men athletes that used to be very robust. Okay, in the archaic period, suddenly began to seem like wet noodles. Okay, toward the end. Okay, and that the people who live in such periods, a late phase of culture, whether it's the Hellenistic era, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the Mauve decade of Oscar Wilde in the 1890s, whether it's Weimar Germany, people who live at such times, okay, feel that they're very sophisticated, they're very cosmopolitan, okay, homosexuality, heterosexuality, so what, anything goes, and so on. All right, and so, but from the perspective of historical distance, okay, you can see that it's a culture that no longer believes in itself, okay, and then what you invariably get are people who are convinced of the power of heroic masculinity, okay, on the edges, whether they're the Vandals and the Huns, okay, or whether they're the barbarians of ISIS, okay, you see them, starting to mass on the outsides of the culture, and that's what we have right now. That there is a tremendous and rather terrifying disconnect between the infatuation with the transgender movement in our own culture and what's going on out there, okay.
Hey, gang, I just had...
Yeah, so there we go. I mean, this is just a sign of where America is right now. And this isn't this new civil rights movement that needs to occur. No, this is just a moment in history that lots of cultures have gone through and that we're working ourselves into. But Josh, you've got a background as a pastor, I believe. I think you have a ministry background. And I want to ask your opinion on this, because America is a unique country, a unique history, because we have this Judeo-Christian founding, and we have this sense of renewal and revival that occurs, so yeah, we're fighting the good fight politically, and you're on the front lines of that, but are we in a late stage civilizational moment here where this is where all hope is lost and we're just going to fight a rearguard action, or is there some sort of moment for renewal that we could have through all this?
Well, there's a few things that, I want to go back just a little bit on the statement you made a little bit ago, and then bring us to what we just watched in that video.
Yeah.
So we could have the spiritual discussion that man is born broken, right? So when people say we were born that way, well, we know what the Bible teaches about that. Man is born in sin. They're born a sinner. There's no end to the depravity of man. What makes man different than any other thing is the fact that we have this thing called a conscience that tells us what is right and what is wrong. So there are people, I put it this way, that are bent maybe in some areas that aren't in others, or people that have inclinations towards certain things that maybe doesn't bother me or wouldn't bother you, or things that bother you that I don't have a problem, whatever the case may be. But we both have been given the same thing in regard to a conscience, to be able to know what is right and what is wrong. Mm-hmm. And as we push against that conscience, that's when we begin to find ourselves steeping into deeper depravity, going deeper and further. And that's what we have seen happen with this whole idea of this gender identity, is that we started out with people that claimed they were pushed in a closet to just let us out of the closet, to don't just let us out of the closet, but accept us as we are, and to not just accept us as we are, but promote us for who we are, to wear our jersey on your back while you're out there skating around the ice hockey rink.